Hello and welcome to Stalwarts of Music with Aditya Veera, Season 2. Today's episode is brought to you by Perpetual Buzz Experiences. They are an artist representation company with three very basic but lofty goals. They're the launchpad for indie musicians, helping them leverage success in the best possible manner. They also help generate funding for social causes and make sure that people have a good time throughout the process. Be sure to check them out on www.perpetualbuzz.com. I'd like to give a huge shout out to the folks at Oddball Festival for making this happen and my radio partners, Big FM India. Let's talk about my special guest for today, Kraken. They are a rock influenced experimental music group from Delhi. The band comprises of Vipul Verma on vocals, Moses Koul on guitar, Reuben on keys, Divij on the bass, Suyash Gabriel on drums. The group released their debut EP Lush and toured with Pliny across the country. The new album Club Namaste has helped them explore an all new territory in defining a complete new take on Bhangra rock. Let's find out more from them. So, without any further ado, I'm delighted to welcome my guest for today, Kraken. Let's get started with our agenda today. I have a very interesting bunch of questions coming your way as part of this, shall we say, podcast or a show. And the most interesting fact about this particular podcast is we've collaborated with the folks at Oddball Festival, and we're trying to document some of these episodes that we will be able to watch at any point of time going forward. So we're trying to create that experience, talking to artists, knowing more about them. So that's the whole agenda behind this podcast.
Amazing. We're actually playing Oddball Festival on the 17th of February. I don't know by when around what time this podcast will be out,
Uh-huh.
but we're very excited. We're playing with Lisa X and we're playing with, of course, the, the veritable Guthrie Govan,
Yeah,
Marco Miniman, and the aristocrats basically. So we're very, very excited.
wonderful. In terms of the aristocrats, fun fact, I mean, a lot of you might not know about this. Last year we had the aristocrats on my podcast, and the
Wow.
episode with Guthrie was streaming number one on Spotify in terms of
Oh, wow.
music
Not
podcast.
surprising at all. Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it was one hell of an experience, and yeah, I'm really looking forward to watching them more than anything else after a
Does
long
it does it
stint.
does it does it hurt you to go from the aristocrats to Kraken? Like, just the
No,
fall
not
from
at
grace
all.
has
Not
been
at
so
all. I mean, everyone's distinct in their musicality or their sensibilities, right? So
yeah,
yeah, every artist is equally important and worthy enough to be on this podcast for sure.
absolutely. Polite applause.
Yeah.
Polite applause. Amazing.
So questions coming your way. What is the core idea that moves and impassions Kraken?
Divish, you want to take that one?
Uh, yeah, sure. I mean, so for me, at least, it could mean something very different because Kraken has gone through many, many different phases. Um, and now I like to think of myself as a fairly senior member of the band because we have extremely junior members as well. Kraken actually was uh, initially visualized maybe as something else and has turned completely sideways and gone somewhere else. And I think that's something that will keep happening with the band because one of the coolest things about us is that um, I think we don't. I think reinvention is putting it very simplistically. I think for us, we take what we want to say very seriously, and I think there's a whole um, identity behind every release, behind every story that we want to tell, especially in terms of how we want to present it. So that could be whether it's the way our EP flows, or album flows from song to song, what we're trying to say in every single part of each song. So that could mean Moses and I sitting for days and days, just literally deconstructing one 10-second part of one song over and over again until we've got it down to a science. It could be how we want to aesthetically present exactly what we're trying to say. Visual impact is extremely important to us, whether it's performative aspects of what we're trying to do, whether it's how we present ourselves individually, what we're trying to showcase in our videos, in our artwork, in our photo shoots. And I think that's something we all take a lot of pride in. So I think the driving force behind what we try to do is just uh, ingenuity, but also a lot of I think we try to run this as smoothly as we can, given that we understand that it's not just about the music at the end of the day. It's more about a presentation. And I think it's something we all understand and resonate with deeply. And Moses can add to that.
Yeah, I think Suresh has summed it up pretty well. What I think the core of what we are is that um, whatever we're consuming at a point in time, and this doesn't have to be just music or a certain piece of cinema or art. It's just whatever it is that we're consuming at a certain point in time. We in the band, we really appreciate and encourage people bringing that aspect to the forefront. It could be anything. It could be something extremely new. And it could be something that we grew up listening, watching, hearing when we were kids, or something even from like maybe our parents' time. The idea is that we put the joy of creation as a band at the top, and it comes way before, a sound or a business decision or what is trending. I think that's really crucial, and also I think what we really like to do is um, collectively we try to just um, say newer things. I don't think we like to repeat what we're saying. And I
Right.
think that's a very, very important part of what we are.
Lovely. Suyash did mention about the whole aspect of your new album, right? Club Namaste. It's so
Mm-hmm.
diverse in the sense that you have tried to blend in so many different genres, ranging from rock to hip hop elements and even Bhangra sensibilities. Right?
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
very very interesting take. Interestingly, very few musicians in India that I've come across are able to blend two or more completely different musical forms and create something that becomes a new classic of sorts. Right?
Mm-hmm.
It is normally stayed with novelty, and it's only very rarely people have said that fusion music between different musical styles creates a vitality for a certain point of time, and it
Mm-hmm.
might get forgotten later.
Mm-hmm.
What
Mm-hmm.
is your
I
take towards something like that, and how does this ideology apply with respect to your album?
well, Suresh, I'll take this one first. I
Yeah, yeah.
think honestly, that's a fantastic question. I think the way you put it is so poignant in the way that when it comes to fusion, I feel yes, there is that odd chance where it could go into a category which is extremely time bound in a way, where it sounds cool for a certain period of time, and when you look back upon it, it sounds extremely dated, or for lack of a better word, cringy. I feel that can happen when someone or some idea is forced into a mold. I think that is the most obvious way that something can become, that possibly might not stand the test of time. I think what we were trying to do
Uh-huh.
was that uh, we so okay. Case in point here being Khan Market Gang single from Club Namaste, which has the very obvious Bhangra elements in it. How it essentially came about was, I think one of the earlier demos was was called Item Song or something like that.
Okay.
and
Right.
I feel like we were trying to make it, uh, you know, we were really obsessed at that point. I remember for a brief period of time, all of us was really obsessed with the idea of making a Kraken item song. And I feel what happened eventually is that while we were trying out different ideas, like there was like a drum groove for the intro. It's just so happened that Suresh decided to, maybe like take it in that direction, whether he was inspired by the item song idea or whether it was us listening to really like, a lot of regional music.
Uh-huh.
Um, but it kind of just seeped in very naturally. And the moment it happened, it just sounded really on, for lack of a better word. Purely also because if you listen to the riff that plays while that groove is playing, it's a very swingy riff, which is what Punjabi
Correct.
music is. It's extremely like high on swing, right? So there was only so much that we wanted to fight with it, and we were like, "Does this sound cool? Does this spark joy?" We had a Marie Kondo moment right there, and we were like, "Yeah, this sparks a lot of joy for us," and we kind of stuck with it. And I feel whether it's cringy or dated, I feel, of course, that we are not the right people to talk about it. The people who listen to it
Correct.
may or may not feel that way. I mean, it's just been a year, not even a year actually. We released that last year, and we'll see what people have to say. But as of now, the moment that intro riff drops, trust me, it goes wild live, and I feel like
Yeah.
up until now, we're fairly okay with it. Just to summarize this answer, and then I'll let Suresh take it forward. Fusion music is more than a genre. I feel it's a craft in itself, which uh, there have been musicians who just absolutely just revitalize the genre time and time again with their skill and their craftsmanship and the songwriting.
Correct.
We as a band really appreciate it. I don't think we actively consider ourselves to be a fusion band or somebody or a band that is actively trying to fuse genres.
Okay.
Uh, but we have immense respect for those artists and people who listen to that kind of music.
Based on what you said, would it be right to say that the intent behind putting out all of this music, blissful music, to term it a little more appropriately, is the intent to make people happy? Is that the main intent behind?
Um, it's well, I think the main intent is to make people dance. I think that's one thing that
Okay.
we are very particular about. I think, and it's not to make people dance. When we listen to a demo, if
Uh-huh.
we don't move,
Exactly. Yeah.
if we don't dance like in our rooms, like there's a video. I think we should put it up on our Instagram. There was a playthrough that Suresh was recording for Khan Market Gang, and he was listening to the playthrough, and he was just dancing by himself, and it's a really cute video. And I
Okay.
feel that is essentially how we are when we make anything. Now, when you dance, you could be happy, you could be sad, and you could possibly even be horny, and that's all okay. I think we pride ourselves on making music that it's really hard, is groovy, and is extremely dancey. I think that's were the three things that we naturally just gravitate towards as a collective.
And I think one important thing that Moses just said was the fact that we don't shy away from actually doing stuff that naturally comes to us. Like I remember when Moses, I, and all the rest of the entire band was in college, we used to love nerding out on intricate music. And I think for us, there are small little areas here and there where we don't hold back and we just want to let go, because I mean, for us at the end of the day, it's more about having a great time when we're playing, and doing whatever it is that we feel like doing as musicians, rather than catering to what we think the demand is or what we think people are going to like. Of course, there's a huge element of marketing that goes into it later on, but I mean, in the moment, it's more about just what we think is cool. And at the end of the day, we can't predict what people are going to think is going to be cool or is going to be
Correct.
consumable or whatnot, but as long as we think it's great, and we genuinely put efforts into making sure that we know it's great, then I mean, it's a win for us, and then it's a win-win if everyone else agrees. So
I really, really appreciate the whole ideology and the intent behind making people dance. And I'm
Yeah.
sure people are going to dance the night away after the Kraken gig at Oddball Festival. Really looking forward to
Absolutely.
it. Yeah.
If we can get the aristocrats to dance to our set, I think that is in itself
I'm
enough of a success story
I'm
for
sure.
us.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
They,
Well, I would say
if
like
they make it on
in
time, that
my.
is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Oh, what?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
No, I don't know. I mean, I don't know how many gigs they're doing, right? Like they might be traveling from somewhere. I don't know their itinerary for this. Yeah.
Like that. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
thought it
And
was more to do with like I thought you just about like this aristocrats for not having good time to like follow the music and
no, not
dance.
at
I
all.
was
Not
like,
at all.
what's wrong
That
with you?
not at all.
lighting fires all over the place, Aditya.
There are people out there who are going to like come outside our homes with like you know we should be very careful what we say. So
Eh, there's always this common debate as to what side one might take. It can be either on the analog front or the digital front in terms of gear that you use, right,
mhm.
as individual musicians. How do you go about picking what's best, or do you take more of a practical approach and go with what might work best for you at that particular point of time?
Okay, I'm just going to kick this off because as a drummer, I think
I
this is
was just like
the
that's like you should
most,
really answer this first.
one of the most irrelevant questions for me, but that's because it depends on how you approach the instrument and I think the writing. Because in this album, there were, and the upcoming music actually as well, there are a lot of places where we used to just constantly try to discuss what kind of soundscaping for the drums, especially like whether we want it to be punchy or do we want it to be like really live and
Eh,
acoustic sounding. And I think like you were saying, right, fusion music is not something that we intended on doing. It just kind of happens. So a lot of like the electronic elements that are in the album
yeah.
are either sampled or are now played live, and it's it just depends on what suits the part more. So we're not trying to kind of force um, any kind of specific gear choice into any scenario in the music. I think it's more just what we think will sound best and then how best we can execute it live. um but yeah, I mean, obviously Moses has done the vast majority of the production as well on the album, so he'll probably have a lot more to talk about when it comes to gear. And I think our bass player would have absolutely like gotten wet with this question by now, so it's sad that he's not
Uh,
here. But please, Moses.
yeah. I think okay. So I'll divide the answer into two parts. One
Okay.
is playing live, and the other being in the studio when you're producing or when you're writing music. I feel in the studio there is absolutely no right or wrong way to go about recording music. I feel if you need to you there is a certain vision that you have as a musician slash artist, and then you need to know, or you need to be able to carve out a method that helps you achieve that sound or whatever that idea that you have of what that specific sound or vibe or whatever it is, whether it helps you achieve it through a synth, an analog synth, or whether it helps you achieve it through a soft synth or plugins, whatever it is, modern, dated, whatever it is. I think it's completely dependent on you. We have used um, live synths,
Okay.
analog synths on the album. We've also used PSTs and plugins on the album, right? Um, uh, there are synth sounds on the album that have been created with the guitar. So we've really not, but that's how we are. We've never really like tied ourselves to a particular method of working. Um,
Hmm.
Coming to live, I think everybody has a different answer. If you go and speak with Divij Kapoor, he might have a different answer. For me, I put comfort and ease over everything. I feel I am not extremely choosy or picky about what care I use. I think, of course, there is a bare minimum quality to, you know, um, if there's a sound that you have to deliver, if you can achieve it with whatever your gear, care is, then I think that's fine. Of course, there have been times when you know a gear upgrade is very evident,
Right.
and I feel like that is something that I trust my band members with, where, we're like, hey, I don't think that's sounding very nice. Let's figure out a way to maybe either have it sound very similar to the album, or maybe like tweak it to make it sound a lot fuller live, or whatever it is, right? Uh, that is super crucial. I feel it's so beautiful that now you have a wide range of digital products and an equally wide range of analog products to choose from and build your sound.
Okay.
I think why decide on one camp? Why not just like have best of both worlds? Pick what
Yeah.
your poison is, because like it's beautiful. Like every time you use a new piece of care, it's just going to make you so happy, and I feel like that's what it is. However, in my case, I personally just I think my aim is to like really cut down on as like little equipment as I can carry live, because
Yeah,
worry. It's a worry of it being
Yeah.
damaged, and secondly, it's just a pain when you're on long tours and you're
Yeah.
just traveling from one city to the other. Just, oh God, like there are
because
times where I'm like, I wish I was a vocalist, because this
yeah,
is not
because they don't help. Like,
Yeah.
I mean,
happening.
unless
No,
you
yeah,
really ask them to, they really don't pick up your shit for you. But
yeah.
but also just to add to what Moses was saying, I think one aspect of what he said, which is why not just pick both camps and go with what's best, I think is also, while it's definitely something everyone would choose to do, I think it is also very idealistic and comes from, like, if you're a privileged musician, please go ahead and do that. But I feel like when it comes down to picking between digital and analog, I don't know, man. I feel like YouTube is probably the best way to go about it. At least that's how I've done it. I've just gone and I've watched people try out different pieces of equipment over and over again until I'm convinced that it's probably the best way to go about it. Or if you can go for a live demo somewhere. This is just for people who are wondering, like, well, what should I do? I'm going to pick up something now and I don't know what to get. So I'd say trust your gut and I do the research, because that's probably what's going to steady you, like keep you in good stead later on. But yeah, if you're loaded and you have a shitload of money, please go ahead and get both and enjoy.
I think what I was when I said both, I meant like, look, if you want to get a floor, a foot processor, and then you want to add like an analog
Hmm.
in the effects system, you can totally do that. A lot of musicians do that. So that's what I was saying.
Yeah,
Look, I still to this day use my 2009 era Paul HD 500, and
Oh
I've
wow.
played one of the biggest shows in
yeah,
my life.
and it
And
sounds great.
it sounds great. In fact, I've been sitting on a quad Cortex by Neural DSP for the last 3.5 months. I haven't even opened like the cellophane paper on top of it, which is absolutely heartbreaking, because I should have said it by now, but I haven't had the time to yet. Um, but it, like I said, it all comes down to what you're comfortable with. There is for me comfort over everything, and
Right.
I remember, like, when I plug in my Pod HD 500, it just sounds so beautiful. And then sometimes I'll plug in my Pod HD 500 into an amp, and the amp will push this air, and I'm like, wow, this is what heaven sounds like. So I feel like I am a, depending on what situation is, kind of a musician, like analog or digital, I'm good with both.
Got it. Got it. Very,
Mhm.
very, very prompt and fair answer. I'd like to touch upon the aspect of performance, right? So there are various sort of aspects when it comes to performance. And talking about Kraken, I'd like to approach this from the angle of being on stage, right? So, to what degree is everything spontaneous and unfolding as opposed to, say, like an entire aspect being strategized beforehand for each of you individually, with every set of, say, articulated movements on stage, or in the sense that every riff is carefully structured, and say for instance some of you might be disturbed by some kind of external circumstance, on the day of the show, or something might be off, right, at some point
Mhm.
of time. But you would have gotten to a certain point where it doesn't bother you because you have that formula and you're able
Mhm.
to carry forward those set of instructions, right?
Right,
uh,
right.
or there could be another way or another angle to look at this, from surrendering to the whole aspect of performance, right, on stage. uh,
Mhm.
it totally depends on inspiration for sure. So how do you
Yeah.
strike that balance, and how what is your
Um,
approach? How do you guys do it? Do you strategize or
I think
spontaneous? Yeah.
so. So, in terms of how we are on stage, in terms of the performance aspect of it, nothing is categorized in terms of how we feel and what comes out. That is
Okay.
completely based on the day, so how we're feeling,
Uh-huh.
how what kind of energy we're feeding off of people, the audience members, right? At the
Yeah.
same time, the kind of experience that we've been bringing to the to our live shows now, it's um, it's a lot more thought through. We have a structure that we follow in terms of how the songs flow. There is of course a show flow that we follow. We are playing songs right from the earliest era of Kraken to Club Namaste. So there has to be a certain storytelling narrative aspect of the entire show which we put into place. We have backing tracks that are running and sort of time coding the entire set, but within the set, within those structured pockets of songs, we have areas where everything is completely jammed. We're
Okay.
jamming live in front of the people, where
Lovely.
there are pockets where there is no click, nothing, and we're completely live and we're looking at each other and we're like, okay, are we extending this? Are we going into this? What are we doing? And it's completely live. So like I said, it's extremely rehearsed in terms of how the set is gonna flow, but at the same time there are moments of absolute chaos and madness which make everything so beautiful, right? And
Right.
it's so amazing when a live jam goes well because we're just like feeding off of that energy until the next show. And sometimes, very rarely, when it does not go well, then we're pointing fingers at okay, it was your idea to extend that last part, and we just have fun with it. I think that's really why I personally have been having a blast on the Club Namaste tour, and it's been so fun. I think this is probably the most fun I've ever had on a Kraken tour because of how smooth the entire set runs. So I think in terms of bringing an experience, the Club Namaste experience as we're calling it for the tour, it's it's equal parts thought through uh, professional performance. At the same time, the live band aspect, I think we've embraced it more than we've ever done before. In fact,
Would you like to add, Suyash?
No, I think he summarized that perfectly. It's exactly what it is.
Brilliant.
thank you. You know exactly what I'm talking about because we've had chats about this so many times now
Yeah, yeah,
that we're
yeah.
so happy with how the set sounds. So we're very happy.
I'd like to talk about independent music in India, right? Of course, there's a regional circuit and there's another Western independent music, right? So I'd like to touch upon that. So, not enough of Western independent music from India seems to resonate with the pulse of people. I'm talking about the majority, right? In terms of the contemporary predicaments or the contemporary vocabulary, right? Majority of
Yeah,
them still listen and appreciate to what happens in the West, which in some senses has universal appeal and say like a wider reach, right? In terms of how they modify, and you did mention about this whole aspect of presentation, right? So yeah, that appeals to like majority of audiences. So how do you define, I know it can be a very difficult question to answer, but how do you define good indie music? Surely it's something more than a good performance or good direction And from what I gauge, the music needs to be reflective of one's own predicaments, their own stories, that might
Mhm.
probably enrich their sensibilities in that realm, and they'll be able to relate to it much better. So, what is your take on this particular thought?
Uh, I think okay. So for me, independent music is particularly. I think one could define independent music as basically music that doesn't necessarily have a lot of support in terms of financial aid
Correct.
or distribution aid from, say, a label. And the bigger the label, the less independent you are, because your image, your music is everything from your production value to how you end up presenting it is kind of under the microscope of who's kind of calling the shots, which may or may not be the artist. But for me, that the label of being independent kind of becomes more and more diluted the more support you have as an artist. And I think good independent music is music that has a story to tell, and that could be like what you were saying, which is a contextual story to tell, something that defines you in the moment, maybe something that's extremely relevant, and it's a commentary on that. Or it could be the artist's own story, or stories that they want to tell through their music, but it needs to come from a genuine place. And I feel like what Moses was talking about earlier is very important here, which is that forcing something to fit into a puzzle that you think is what people want to see or hear can backfire massively. And I think that's, for me, that's what separates good independent music from I wouldn't say bad or good is any way to judge art, but I'd say art that becomes part of the kind of mass versus
Uh
art
huh.
that stands out is art that pushes boundaries, and is art that has something genuine to say. I think when you try to follow a formula and fit into what you think is cool or trendy at that moment, you are, whatever, a sensation for maybe a couple of whatever, like a brief time period, like we were talking about earlier, but then you
Yeah.
become overshadowed because there's just there's the sheer number of people who are doing the exact same thing or doing it the same way as you are, um just drowns you. But I feel like if you're the person who starts the trend, or if you're the person who's actually made that wave happen, then it's very unlikely that you will be overshadowed because you're the first one there, and people are always going to look back to you and think, okay, yeah, you know what, that's the original
Yeah.
one,
Yeah.
like that's
Yeah.
the OG. So I think for me, good independent music, recognition aside, I mean, that obviously comes with just your distribution strategy and your marketing, and obviously the infrastructure that you have, because right now India is still it's a baby when it comes to actually being able
Correct.
to market um, music a certain way. It's no one's fault, uh, but I think what is really commendable is how much effort artists are now putting into becoming global. I think this wasn't a phenomena back, even if you look 5 years into the past, 4 years into the past, artists weren't pushing as hard as they are now. And I think it's so cool that there are so many artists now, independent artists from India,
Yeah.
regardless of what kind of music they're writing, who are going global, and they're doing it really well. They're touring the world. They're getting huge audiences to come to them. They're playing stadiums. And I think it's only going to get bigger and better from here, because I think not only is the infrastructure growing because artists are making it grow, but also I think we've come to a place where all of us understand the importance of running whatever it is that we're running, um, like a business. And that's the only way to make it happen, that's the only way to expand, and that's the only way to kind of make sure that people actually listen to what you're doing and notice what you're doing. So that I mean, that's what it means to me.
Okay.
I let
Okay.
Moses add. Yeah.
um, I think this is a very, honestly, a very, very difficult question. I don't think there is an answer to it. I think, so firstly, let me say that, nowadays, uh, we're in a data economy. Right? I can right now go to a label head and tell him or her or them and be like, look, I want to make music that reaches X amount of people, and I want to be able to do these many shows within the next 6 to 8 months, yada yada yada. And the label executive is gonna pull out all these stats from their other artists, from like all these streaming
Yeah.
services,
Yeah.
and then they're gonna devise this really nice formula for me. And if I just stick to that formula, I'm eventually looking at a very systematic growth in my music and my live act and so on and so forth. And then I am a pro short hit. I am then a marketable product, right? Now, that's one way of making music in today's game. I'm not even gonna go into like AI and chat GPT. Like, let's not even go there. That's a completely different argument. But um, now coming to what independent means. For me, what independent means is that between the artist and the audience, there is no middleman. Now, uh, there are artists that are completely selling out stadiums that are doing it without a label, uh, label head, without um, label backing them. But they, of course, they have massive crews that are working day in and day out for them. They are too independent. They are also independent, and I feel like independent does not mean successful or unsuccessful or profitable and not profitable. I feel independent essentially stands for um, uh, you know it's more of a business function to my head. To my understanding, it's a business function. I don't view it as any other way. Now coming to the second part of the question, which is about Western music.
Correct.
Look, um, you know that's a very again a very slippery slope argument, because there was a time when Western music was all that was live music in India at a point.
Yeah.
It was extremely like there were bands that were touring off of it. They were doing cities after cities, and now it's kind of given way to regional music a lot more. Hindi or regional music has, and regional artists and regional independent artists are doing really well, and that's now become sort of the norm. I feel it's how or what is the norm or what do people consume or what people like. It's such a uncertain thing to bank upon. It's such an uncertain thing to bank upon that if we tomorrow are suddenly like, oh, XYZ Hindi artist is doing so well, we should now completely just do Hindi music, and we force our vocalist or we force ourselves to write music that we haven't really like studied properly, or he hasn't studied or he hasn't practiced writing in. It's gonna backfire. So what we were doing, even semi successfully as quote unquote an English band, we will not be able to do even half of that, right? So I think the idea here is that there is no right answer. There is no right way of doing it. I don't think labels are necessarily bad or evil. At the
Correct.
same time, I don't think they're necessarily needed either. Without saying too much, Kraken has had a lot of label interest off late after we put Club Namaste out, but we're thinking about it. We're not, jumping the gun, because we have been, there has been so much confidence that we have got after people listen to our music, have invested their time and their money in the crowdfunding and successfully helped us record an album, make a music video, make the kind of artwork we want to do, make the kind of merch we want to do. I feel like if we already have that, then we don't need a middleman coming and sucking out a certain percentage of
Yeah.
whatever it is that we um, can do on our own, right? So I think that's where I stand. I feel like I'm really inadequately. I have very inadequate information about where I stand on this. I feel like it's a bit pointless to think about it also. So I just kind of let it pass, and I focus more on creating with my band. I think that's where my head is at.
Very, very beautifully articulated. I like the whole concept and, the whole focus on the music front more than anything else,
Thank you.
which is
Yeah.
very commendable
Thank you.
during times like these.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
As a collective group at this stage in your careers, What is the most positive aspect that you see as you work in the world of independent music, shall we say?
Um, okay, I'll go. I think I have a prepared answer for this. The fact that the audiences are far more open to newer kinds of music.
Sure.
I think that's there. I think when especially on this tour, is when we realized we played a lot of festivals.
Yeah.
Uh, we had the opportunity to play a lot of festivals in a lot of different cities. We've toured newer cities that we haven't toured ever before, and of course that brought new audiences to our shows, and their response and their approach and their openness to want to give us a shot. And we know that we're not your, you know, straight hitting rock band or pop band or whatever it is. We bring a bit of the funk, as they say, and the fact that people are just they're just ready and they buy the idea and they believe in it and they're so passionate about it. And the most important thing, so vocal about sharing it. I think
Yeah.
that's is the greatest thing. I feel like as terrible as it is to say it, but I feel like the pandemic kind of just reset the game a little bit for sure. Yeah. So yes.
No, I was just, I mean, the only thing I'd add to that is the fact that, I mean, I think all of us as kids, when we're growing up, especially as musicians, the
Yeah.
dream is to kind of play to people who sing your songs back to you. And the fact that it's actually happening now and you have people chanting our choruses to us,
Yeah.
regardless of whether it's like four people or the whole room doing it, is, I think it's just, it just makes it very evident that we're doing something right. And, you can breathe a sigh of relief after putting in years and years of effort and putting something out, and it's not a gigantic flop. I think that's something that we're happy about for sure.
I'm glad it's paying off in some capacity.
Mhm.
So are we.
Moses, this question is driven to you. You don many hats, that of a model, an actor, a guitar player, an instructor, a producer, right? So,
Mhm.
which is the
Mhm.
most preferred one for you out of all these?
I can tell you the least preferred one. I modeling. I think that's the least. Like I have,
Okay.
it's there's not enough meat to bite into. Um, you know, Aditya, I'll always, always be a musician first.
Yeah.
And that includes being a guitar player, that includes writing music, that includes producing. I think that'll always be uh, where I draw inspiration from. Even when it comes to acting, for that matter, I feel like I'm very new into it. I'm still like learning the craft of it. But whenever I do learn, whenever I do indulge in it, I'm always bringing similarities or trying to find similarities in acting that remind me of how it was or how it is to learn a new skill on the guitar or a new technique on the guitar or something new when I do production. I feel like um, music is such an intrinsic part. It's I won't even say a part. It's like kind of built into the fiber of my being to the point where I am always with music, even in the silences. I feel that the silences are also super important. My like you know, as much as I love to play live music, I hate loud venues. Like I hate to go to a restaurant or cafe that's really loud because it's just it bothers me. And it bothers me purely because I value the silence as much as I like value you know, um, the loud music and everything. So I feel to answer your question, in summarize it, I will always be a musician first because that's really what 13-year-old music Moses was thinking about doing when he was on stage. It was yeah, yeah, that's what it was. Yeah, long hair on stage rocking out with my brother.
Right on, right on. In this large climate of globalization, that of capitalism, everything seems to be very utilitarian of sorts, right?
Okay.
I'm sure
Yeah.
there's value, and people are investing in art right now in the form of
Mhm.
NFTs and other digital assets, right? So they see a lot of value in all of these things, and they are investing mostly in the sense of investment and not necessarily in their response towards art.
Mhm.
So, in your opinion, what is the value of art,
Mhm.
and what is the relevance of the artistic process, and why should the community invest in art?
Suresh, you want to take that one first, or?
I'm formulating my answer because it's a very, very
Well,
wonderful question you've asked. And I think
I
it's, yeah, yeah.
you
What?
want something, or should I go for it?
You go for it because I was going to answer, but I know what I'm going to say. So you can.
Oh, okay. Then you please go for it, and then I'll answer.
Okay, so basically, what I was going to say was, I think I'll divide the answer into two different parts. One is the value, and one is why should people consume art. That was your question, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think value is a very subjective thing. I think people value music or art very differently based on what it is they're consuming it for. Some people may have the need to consume certain art maybe at a certain time in their life or at a certain period because it brings them more value at that time. Or some people may just value a certain kind of art because that's what they resonate with, and that's what brings them joy. That's what makes them tick. Like I know for people like Moses and I and the rest of the band, music is something that I don't think we could live without. I mean, it's something that defines us. It's something that's built us into who we are, and it's a variety of music. It's not one specific type of music. It's not one musician who we have a mandir for and we're sitting and worshiping, but it's just like a variety and a multitude of different artists who have inspired us and who continue to inspire us, and we get a kick out of discovering new music as well, which does that for us, like as as someone who's very sensitive to music, like just that feeling, that rush that you get from getting goosebumps when you listen to something amazing. It doesn't happen to a lot of, like, I know a lot of people who haven't experienced that yet, getting goosebumps when they listen to music. But to someone who's really sensitive to it, the value of that product is that much more. It's exponential. So I feel like value, from a monetary perspective or from a numerical perspective, is very different from value that people have in an emotional sense. From a numerical perspective, what value art has, I think, is left to the so-called experts, because a dot on a piece of paper can sell for millions of dollars, and we don't understand
Yeah.
why, but they do. Um, and for me, I feel like that value escapes me. I don't understand how pricing really works within different art forms. But for an I think for an artist who works in the industry, understanding the value chain is really important, because to be able to price something, you need to understand the labor that's gone behind it and why it is priced a certain way. And I mean, marketing wise, there are tons of reasons why people price things a certain way. You could do competitive pricing, or you can reduce your prices but none of that really works in music. I feel like when it comes down to it, you just have to know what you have to assess what you think your value is as an artist, and put it out there. But now, what you said about capitalism and globalization basically brings me to Spotify, and
Yeah.
pretty much
Yeah.
every other platform out there, which is essentially kind of flatlining the value of what an artist is, because you're essentially selling your product at the same price as everyone else. You're also valued in the same monetary bracket as everyone else. And the only thing that sets you apart is what you're saying and how you're saying it and what people find unique about you. So um, I think that it's again, it's extremely complex, because there are so many things that could dictate whether or not you do well, and what value is attached to your music. Like music that I may not resonate with, or I may not find particularly fun to listen to, may do incredibly well because it's on a reel that went viral.
Yeah.
And my music, which which maybe a bunch of people find valuable here may not do as well monetarily because it didn't have a reel that went viral, or someone didn't drop a YouTube video with it in the background somewhere that everyone loved, or it isn't featured on an OTT platform. And I feel like those are all things that um, are either luck based or essentially based on how well you choose to sell your music. It's
Yeah.
extremely complicated, and there's no real like formula to cracking it or to figuring it out.
Yeah.
But I think the value of music keeps evolving, and it's going to keep evolving. Like Moses said, now you have things like Chat GPT and AI and God knows whatnot, technologies that keep coming out, which you never really know what direction things will swing in. And people will find a way to kind of break the mold and, I don't know, sell their music a certain way or add value a certain way. But as things stand right now, I don't think there's like a definitive answer to
Yeah.
what value for music is. I think it's different for everyone and in different
Sure.
in every scenario.
I think I have a very simple thing that I live by, and I'll share it. Of course, it's a personal mantra, and that is that all art is overrated. Um, there should absolutely be no guilt tripping people into buying art or valuing it a certain way. I definitely don't believe in that. I feel that's really cheapening the art of creating anything. It's cheapening the art of it's even cheapening the expertise and the
Yeah.
skill and the level of practice and this dedication that goes into learning something and creating some or learning it to a point where you can create something of value, whatever that value is. And I don't think there will ever be uh, an answer to this question about what is the value of art, how should art be valued, what is it like is it a numerical or a monetary number, or is it based on how you feel, is it a feelings based thing? I think these conversations are um, uh, giving the product way too much importance. I don't think it's that. I don't think it's just the product. I don't think it's just the artist. I think there is something that is, you know, almost supernatural about the entire experience. If I were to give you something and say this is some form of art, and I remove the entire experience of you being able to either delve into it and find out a world that exists behind that product, whether it's a song, if I remove the whole aspect of you ever finding out who made it or what their story was or what they're talking about, it might not be as valuable. So, like I said, it's almost like it's is are you gonna value the final product or is it
Yeah.
like is it like value added, things at different steps. So I feel like it's a really it's a rabbit hole that I feel one should not get into. Um, uh, and if we are talking about purely monetary aspect of art, then keep it monetary, keep it superficial, keep it, if it's about, hey, I want X amount and the only way you can earn X amount of money through streaming is through Spotify, then play the game, play the Spotify game, you know. Um, Wolfpack, I mean, it's a very famous story about how they rigged the whole
Yeah.
Spotify game. I don't want to get into it because that'll take too much time. You can like play the game, rig it. If you feel like something is exploitative, I feel like the best way to tackle it is within the system. And I think that's where we also as a fan function. We're very much within the system. And yeah,
Nice. Let's talk about something lighter. I
okay.
feel I've been putting forth too many questions that
Let's talk.
got
Let's talk about that wonderful smile, Aditya.
He
Let's talk about that wonderful
keeps
right.
flashing it
smile.
once in a while. You're doing well in an answer when Aditya just suddenly like brightens up like whole
Right.
screen.
Yeah, 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 yeah. This guy has spoken with the legends, man. He's spoken with like everybody. So of course,
I am talking to some of them right now.
yeah,
Yeah.
this is definitely a legend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So could you describe an average day in the life of Kraken? beyond, say, the aspect of recording or touring or performance?
It's just a lot of like live shit posting. I think all of us are just absolute idiots, and I think we get off on being that with each other.
I think, yeah,
Uh,
exactly.
yeah.
I feel like, yeah, like Suresh was saying, we share, we shit post on the official band group until everyone, or at least most people, get sick to the point where we're like, what are we doing? We call ourselves, we're a semi-professional band, and we have, whatever, we have like deadlines to meet, or we have songs to complete, and we've got like these things lined up, or we've got but to answer your question, I feel like all five members have completely different lives,
Okay.
absolutely different. I now stay in Mumbai, but I'm always coming to Delhi. In fact, I've been traveling to Delhi more now because we've been rehearsing a lot and we've been on tour, and we'll be writing new music also. So most of the times it is right now we've been collectively as a band, we've been uh, working towards bettering our uh, the Club Namaste experience, which is the live performance aspect of it. That's been like taking most of our attention, but we've now slowly focused towards writing because um, we are in talks with people about certain things and certain things that we do want to explore. Um, but some of the members have day jobs,
Yeah.
so they work their day jobs, and after the jobs or maybe over the weekend is when they kind of like, take our time for the band and so on and so forth. Sometimes, of course, when we have to play on a weekday, they lie, which is a beautiful, beautiful thing. They lie or they take leaves, and then they come for the shows. And we've been successfully doing this for a while now. Um, yeah, I can let Suresh answer for what his day is like.
No, I think that's basically exactly what it is. I mean, despite the fact that all of us are extremely different individuals, but also lead very different lives, when we come together, there's a very unified kind of goal. Whether that's something as simple as a WhatsApp chat, or when we finally meet for rehearsals, there's a very clear cut agenda to what we're doing. So if we're all messing around on WhatsApp, then we're all doing that, but it eventually comes back down to what the larger picture is and what it is that we're trying to achieve. And I think that's the coolest thing about us. We don't take ourselves too seriously, but we're serious about not taking ourselves too seriously, which is great, because like at the end of the day, um, the work gets done without any pretense, without any real like you know force forced effort. I mean, obviously, sometimes we have to goad each other into getting stuff done because life gets in the way. But I mean, everyone has stuff to do, and you have to kind of pull your weight eventually. So so yeah, it's just a bunch of what Moses said earlier, right? Like playing on stage with his bros. It's just a bunch of good friends coming together for a cause.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I think like this time around we've been seeing a very active, dare I say the word, professionalism that you're bringing, which is kind of making us work a lot. We've become a lot more productive in a way where we're like less about, oh, let's have fun. When we're like now like, okay, cool, let's do this. Like we have something going on here. Like we see that little spark that I feel like we all was working for a really long time, and I feel we finally just like all clicked into place. And yeah,
Sorry, just to add to that, I mean, the fact that, I mean, this professional also, I think, comes from a very deep understanding of what every individual in the band is. And I think that's just come from years of being around each other. I think we're all very in tune with each other, and we kind of understand. So for example, if someone can't make it somewhere, or if someone is finding it difficult to meet a certain commitment, um, we, I think, already know why it's happening, or whether or not it has something to do with a lack of commitment, or if it's a genuine reason. And we found ways to work around all of those things, and I think that's what really keeps the machine rolling. It's the fact that running, is because I think we've all um, reached a point of equilibrium with each other where there's a very deep understanding, and we just know how to make things happen, even if not all hands are on deck all the time. And I think that's very important. I think it takes a very well-oiled machine to make that happen, and it's how I think how any successful kind of venture runs, just knowing who is good at what and when people have to come in individually to make something happen.
You've That kind of leads me to another question. You have been one of the most sought after drummers for artists that include the likes of Dualist Inquiry, Doppler Effect, Zokoa, a couple of other interesting projects. So, how do you situate Kraken in comparison with these other set of projects till date?
That's a really nice question. I think all of us around the spectrum have played with a multitude of different acts in the past, and continue to, like, our basically our Divij plays with so many different people. And I think at one point I was juggling, I can't even remember how many acts, but at that time I was working with a very simple kind of model, which was that if someone asks me to do something first, then that takes priority over other things. And I started soon realized that I was a really stupid model to work with, because not everyone is prioritizing the work the same way that other people are prioritizing their work. And over years and years of experience, I've come to realize that it's very important to prioritize acts and people who have the same goal and the same drive as you do. So I think Kraken is definitely the band that or the group of people right now that I'm working with who have my full attention. And I think that's extremely important, because I've also played with many acts that had a lot of promise at one point, which fizzled out. And the reason why that happened could have been a very genuine reason or an extremely stupid reason. And in retrospect, you can go back and you can try and tweak shit, but there's no point in thinking about it when there's no solution to it. But if you have something that looks extremely promising and feels like it's moving in the right direction, then I feel like putting your efforts into that is extremely important. And that's how I kind of approach my work now. So Kraken definitely has, a very, very, um, I think, a very special way of working, and it's a way of working that I love. So for me, um, the projects that I prioritize now are all projects that do that for me. So, for example, you'd mentioned Zokova is definitely one of those.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't say there's a hierarchy in the way I'm working, but there's definitely like a certain kind of work ethic that I value way more than say other acts. So I wouldn't hierarchize any of my acts, but I definitely will prioritize them a certain way. And I've cut down a lot. I've cut down a lot on the acts that I'm playing with, just in terms of making music with. I think sessioning wise, that's something that I do if and when I feel like I have time for it, and if it's an act that I think is fun to play with, and I like working with the person, then it's something I take up. But as far as making music goes, I think I've realized that concentrating your creative energies in fewer spaces leads to better results, for me at least. Like, I really enjoy it because it allows me to push boundaries with those acts more than just spreading myself thin and wanting to kill myself at the end of a day which had 5 rehearsals. So yeah.
Marvelous, marvelous.
Yeah.
In the interest of time, I'd like to come to the last part of this agenda today, which is the rapid
Mhm.
fire segment. And let's see how the two of you all do.
We're gonna be okay.
No, it's going to be more fun.
12:40 at night. Let's go
It's
rapid
going to be
fire.
more fun. What is that one song that always makes you cry?
Bob Marley, Stir It Up.
Okay.
Oh, I right now the one that's coming to mind is "It's Okay to Cry" by Sophie.
All right. On the contrary, what is your favorite guilty pleasure song?
I have no guilty pleasure songs. I am out there proud, and I'll tell you, I listen to Backstreet Boys. I listen to everything, and I'm very
All
proud of
right.
it. I have no guilty pleasure,
All right.
none.
Oh, I think I had the exact same answer up until I realized that I've been obsessed with Taylor Swift of late.
Oh,
And
no way.
I mean,
I've
yeah,
heard the
I
new
wouldn't say
album.
it's guilty. I wouldn't say it's guilty pleasure. It's a guilty pleasure, dude. It's great. It's a great album, so I'm enjoying it. Yeah, yeah.
I've heard good things about it.
Right.
Yeah.
If the two of you had the chance, you had like a record label backing you up, and you had the chance to put together like an all-star experimental prog rock project,
Oh
who'd
my
be in
God,
it? Who'd be in it?
Moses, go
Oh
for
God. Okay. Well, the thing is it like if I had a label backing me, I don't think I'll make prog rock. I think I'll probably make like the most well-produced black metal band.
Okay,
And because see, I'm a huge black metal, death metal guy. That's like my zone.
okay.
But since Suyash and I are making it, I feel it'll mostly be like half of like Limp Bizkit, half of Slipknot, essentially. um, geez, I think it'll be Yes, I don't know, man. I think it'll be a straight up like some type of Slipknot type of band. I feel like that's what we'll like eventually go towards. I think like Cody Taylor, Tino Marino on vocals. We'll probably have Suresh on drums. I'll be on guitar. Ooh, actually, I know who'll be second guitar player. Mark Tremonti from all the great
Hell
classical music
yes.
scores as a sponsor on bass. Uh, who should dude. Who's the I keep forgetting his name. Who's the bassist from Mudvayne?
Oh
Ah,
yeah, Ryan Martini.
Ryan Martini.
Yeah, yeah.
Damn, Ryan Martini on bass. Then we'll have, of course, I have to have Jordan Rudess on keys because
Yeah.
that would be hilarious.
And
That
since
would be
it's since
hilarious.
since it's an experimental prog band, it has
Yeah,
to have saxophone somewhere.
yeah.
So
Oh right, it has that
probably like a
saxophone, and then we in every song we'll have a guitar feature by John Petrucci. Like he'll just come and play a solo in every song.
Since you
Yeah.
mentioned Jordan Rudess, he's going to be our next guest on the show.
oh
Uh,
Oh
wow,
my
what
God.
a
so that episode
follow up.
will be coming out on the 18th of Feb. So check it out if you
Oh, a
have
Yeah,
the
day
time.
after our show.
one day after our show. Excellent. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
Come to our show and then go watch the John Lewis episode with Aditya.
yeah.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
Sorry, we completely unrapid fired your rapid fire round with those.
That's all right. That's all right. It had to unfold this way.
Yeah.
Yep.
I have one last question for
Mm.
today, which is a custom in all of my interviews, and I ask all of my guests this very question. Uh, Down in the distant horizon, what would you want to be remembered as?
Down the distant horizon, I would love to be remembered as the person who's coming out with a new album.
He has answers
Uh,
up his
I-
sleeve.
What? What do you say?
I said you got the right answers up your sleeve for every possible question thrown at you.
Thank you.
I think for me it would just be I'd want to be remembered as someone who stood their ground. Yeah.
Marvelous, marvelous.
Very cool.
Incredible,
Very cool.
incredible answer for a closure. That being
Mhm.
said, this interview will be additionally aired on Big FM India, being a media
Oh wow.
partner along with the Oddball Festival. And they air
That's
it
amazing.
primarily across their properties in Shillong and Aizawl on the Sunday primetime show. Uh, and it'll also be out at a later point. It'll take a while, but yeah, we'll try to put it out as soon as we can, in the best of our abilities, on YouTube in an audio video format in my channel, and across all audio streaming platforms as Stalwarts of Music. And I'd really like you all to share it along with friends, fans, and family.
Yeah, goes without saying.
It's
Absolutely.
it's been a very, I don't know, I should probably say, humbling experience talking to the two of you all. It's been a total blessing, honor, and a privilege. So thank you guys
Oh,
for this
No,
thank you
experience.
likewise,
so much.
Aditya. I just wanted to say, dude, your questions and just the way you've approached this has been really, really something. Like I've had such a wonderful time because there's such thought-provoking questions and well thought out. You
Well,
just like your show flow is commendable. Well done. Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Thank you. Means a
Awesome.
lot. Means a lot coming from
your
you.
questions is so well researched, and they're so, on point. They're not a word out of place, and I think that's truly the reason why, Stalwarts of Music is doing so well, and we're so honored to be here. And thank you so much for having us. The pleasure and the honor was all ours.
Yeah, we recently got an interview with a question that asked us about how we're going around mourning the loss of our vocalist and what it's like being successful in Colombia. And I think that's testament to bad research coming
What?
from
Oh no,
people.
that's
I had no idea
Yeah,
about this.
yeah, yeah. So
We got
yeah,
a
thank you for the refreshing experience.
thank you guys once again. And before we conclude this session, uh, I'd like you guys to conclude this particular session by a closure to all the people who are going to be coming down to watching you all at Oddball Festival.
right. Closure is that, uh, guys, we are playing on the 17th of February uh,
In Mumbai.
at Oddball in Mumbai at Oddball Festival, which is one of the four other dates that Oddball is, so Oddball is happening across the country. We're playing on the 17th in Mumbai with the Aristocrats, Lisa X and her band,
Mamoji.
Parvaz, and Mamoji, and of course, the humble Kraken music group. And it's gonna be crazy. I can tell you that much because it's happening at Phoenix Market City, which is this massive area. Um, and I am already, like, while talking about it, I'm getting goosebumps, and I feel like it's it's one of those live shows that you have to be present to, like, really experience. I don't think words or videos or stories will ever do justice to what it's going to be like. And yeah, come for music, come for dance, and come for, like, some of the best musicians in the world, including us, who are going to just rip it on stage, and we're going to be there fanboying, fangirling with the rest of you all.